Hello and season's greetings from me, JJ Enisiobi, and for all of the festive cheer, there's one person we suspect won't be having such a good Christmas. This is a Daily Expresso farewell to the former Prince Andrew. Once a familiar and notorious face of royal duty, now a cautionary tale that crushed public trust. His dismissal from regal life marks a sobering moment for the crown. Here are the best Daily Expresso moments that defined his royal reckoning. They say rock bottom has a basement, and this looks to be the case with the royal formerly known as Prince Andrew. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, as I call him, Naughty Andy, has lost all of his royal privileges, and who knows where it all goes for him from here. One person who's predicted a deepening disaster for Andy is Jeremy Vine, who yesterday on the BBC said, "I would reckon in the next 5 years he'll be in an American jail." Now, of course, Jeremy Vine is not the oracle on this topic, but it's interesting to consider how bad things might get for Andy now that he's got no royal protection and no more royal privileges. There's no Schadenfreude for me on this, okay? I'm not happy that he's lost his royal titles and things. I won't be happy until the FBI have taken him kicking and screaming to court and he's actually investigated and under oath he has to say what he knew and where he was with the paedophile Epstein. I think that's what has to happen. Him losing his titles, he's still rich. The guy has no money, he's got no income. He's still richer than I'm ever going to be. You know what I mean? That's not fair. So I want it until he goes to America and he's in a court and they can ask him the questions. For me, this makes no difference.
Just putting something revolutionary out there, JJ. Do you not believe in innocence until proven guilty? I just want to put it out there because I'm sorry, but I know we're getting very carried away with Andrew. You know, to me, he's an entitled, pretty dodgy guy that's brought the royal family into disrepute, and I really mind about that. And my God, if he's committed a crime, send him to prison. I'm absolutely fine about that. But he's never been charged for a criminal offence yet at all. It's just a huge wave of claims. And I do think we need to keep in our minds as well that, until the court day is there, I do think men should be presumed innocent until found guilty. I know it's shocking.
No, listen, I fully agree with you. But if I was hanging out with a paedophile, then I think people could say, JJ's hanging out with a paedophile, and he knows he's a paedophile, but he's still going to hang out with him.
What about Bill Clinton? What about Bill Gates? What about
they
all
should
those
all be hauled
who've
in?
Been alleged to be on that list?
Andrew's not alleged to be on anything. Andrew is pictured with a paedophile. We know he was friends with him.
I'm
not alleging it at all. I'm saying
yes,
Andy was friends with a paedophile.
He was, as was Sarah Ferguson, as was Peter Mandelson.
And they should all be taken to
Do you think
to
they should
America.
be taken to the tower?
I just want them to be sat down and questioned as anyone else would be.
I think that's very fair, as long as it's everyone. It's very suspicious. It's very strange that it's only the British people who are literally taking one for the team here. They seem to be the scapegoats for all those over in America who may have been involved. And I think there should be questions asked about that.
Absolutely.
I think Andrew, again, if he committed a crime, should go to jail like the rest of us. Being royal shouldn't ever stop you from feeling the full force of the law. All I'm saying is there's a lot of hysteria, a lot of attention on this man when there are so many worse injustices about child rape and abuses going on in our country. If only the grooming gangs got, Parliament as riled as they have been over Prince Andrew, when men actually convicted of mass rape, torture, causing sexual injuries on 12, 13-year-old girls, if only they got the rage of the world on them as much as Prince Andrew.
I think they do get the rage of the world on them.
They have, but nothing's done about it.
But what we have here is, and again, as you're perfectly right, Andrew has not, as far as I know, committed a crime. But the moral crime of being friends with a paedophile,
I agree with
and
you.
Celebrating a paedophile,
I agree.
That I think is enough for him to be taken in for questioning, which until this point hasn't happened. And I think it hasn't happened because he was a royal, and now that he's no longer classed as a royal, now perhaps they can take him in.
Why wasn't Peter Mandelson taken in for questioning?
I don't know.
I
don't know.
I think it was hard for I think King Charles did the right thing. I also am really disappointed in Andrew, because if he had any respect for the royal family or any interest in preserving the monarchy, he would have stepped down a long time ago and saved them from all of this. So I am no fan of Andrew, believe you me.
Sounds like you kind of are.
No, I'm a fan of justice and innocence before guilty, JJ.
Right.
That's all. I'm sad to hear you're not.
Now, I have read your book entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. It's fantastic. It's full of bombshells. Just give our readers some of the biggest bombshells.
Well, I think the thing that surprised me most was that the Queen was protecting Andrew. Every time people brought complaints to her, she sent them away, including complaints not just from senior diplomats, but also people from the intelligence services. So this was a sort of, I wouldn't say it was a giant conspiracy, but basically she had this blind spot with Andrew. I think clearly his activities in Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, the sort of bribes he was taking, the commission he was earning, 3.85 million to introduce a Greek water firm into Kazakhstan, for example, the way that people were taking on these trips from his daughters to his sort of business associates, David and Jonathan Rowlands. I think clearly the sexual escapades, again, very, very brazen. So his private secretary would ask a diplomat to say, on a trip, he likes blondes. And the diplomat would say, well, I'm a diplomat, I'm not a pimp. But there were a lot of prostitutes brought to him. I mean, the famous episode, as you mentioned, is in Thailand, but I'm sure there are many others, where he went through 40 prostitutes on one 4-day trip paid for by the taxpayer, and then swapped them with an Arab prince. He also managed to take his Thai girlfriend, Sonia Cooling, who's an actress, well-known actress there, on these official trips, for example, when he went to Chiang Mai. So he was very, very open about it. Everyone knew about it, and nothing was said. And I'm amazed the secrets have remained, as long as they have. Of course, people are now coming out of the woodwork, telling all sorts of stories. And I think a lot of the people who talk to me, the senior naval officers, for example, because they were exasperated by the way he'd been protected and felt this story needed to come out. I go around lecturing at literary festivals, and that's very much Middle Britain. These are retired army colonels and people, and they're appalled by the way they behaved. And I speak as a monarchist. I want the monarchy to survive, but not if it's going to be corrupt like that.
So essentially the Queen did cover up. She covered up for him every single time.
Yes, I mean, every time he was quoted in some Epstein scandal, she gave him the Knight of the Garter or made him an honorary vice admiral or insisted he sit beside her in the car going to Balmoral. And everyone thought, well, actually, maybe he is innocent. Maybe there's no truth to these allegations. But I went into this with a very open mind. I'm a trained historian. And it's very clear that Virginia Giuffre was telling the truth. Everything she says backs up. And everything that Andrew and indeed Sarah Ferguson have said are lies. And that, of course, has now been proved with subsequent leaked emails and other information.
So Andrew liked blondes. He essentially asked his hosts to act as pimps, and he liked the lavish lifestyle. That would tie in perfectly with his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes, exactly. I mean, they both had an interest in making money and girls, and you could throw in Trump to that and add the golf bit. And what Epstein provided for Andrew was basically contact with these girls. He paid off Fergie's debts, and he gave him some useful contacts. And for Epstein, Andrew provided respectability, pictures of him at Balmoral, and also, again, some useful contacts he got from his time as a taxpayer-funded special representative. You
said before that Epstein and Andrew had some sort of sexual rivalry. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Yes, I mean, I think what was really weird about Epstein is he got a kick from the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell, his girlfriend, was also sleeping with Andrew. And then one of the weird things is that Andrew was providing some of his ex or current girlfriends to Epstein, who was actually basically farming them out to well-known people, including a well-known resident of Florida.
Let's go back to Andrew, because yes, he's been kicked out of his 30-room Royal Lodge, but it's going to get worse for him. And I'm not disappointed about that. He's going to now lose most of the £558,000 that he thought he was owed. So when he initially went into that place, he'd paid £1 million up front. He was supposed to then pay another £7.5 million in renovations because the place is falling apart. And he's supposed to have the lease until 2078. So now it's been dashed out early. He thought he was going to get some of that cash back. But no. He's not going to get it. He's missing out on just over £500,000. It's a pretty crappy 2025 for him, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there'll be too many people reaching for the violin, however big or small. Look, I mean, and, I think there's other stories out today about, Paul people who live in places called like Prince Andrew's Close or Prince Andrew's Drive. They want to change the name, their street names, because they don't want to be associated with him. Which I don't know how much that will cost. Probably the council will have to fix that as well if they're not too busy on the Christmas lights and the flags. But look, he has. Where do you start? It is absolutely right that his titles were stripped. It's absolutely right that he's kicked out because you can't have someone who not only continued a relationship with a convicted paedophile, but lied about it. We know that in the interview that he gave with Emily Maitlis. It just didn't add up. There are emails to suggest, and of course Sarah Ferguson, who married and into the family by association, but again sort of criticised Jeffrey Epstein in public, but emails revealed now suggesting, and she apologised for that, so I'm so sorry, Jeffrey, you knew what I had to do, as if anybody would do. No, you just cut contact, and his story, he's never been convicted. He's never had his day in court. He's refused to go, and so you can't legally say that he's guilty of anything. But we know this. He flew. It doesn't add up. You don't fly halfway across the world to see someone just to say.
Can't be mates anymore.
I can't be mates anymore. I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
But would you like to go for a walk around, the Central Park? None of it makes sense. And obviously the post-office book of Virginia, Giuffre, revealed an awful lot. But unfortunately, she can't add to that. It is a book that will be around forever, and you can't ask any more questions.
Well, bad news for Andrew, because it's going to get even worse for him. Is personalised number plates. Yeah, it's AY02 space DOY, and he's got another one, AY03 space DOY. He can't have them anymore. They're about to expire. He's going to lose those too.
Well, how much would that be? How much is a personalised number plate?
You'd have to ask Charlie Boy to buy him some new ones. But
when you're knighted, you can ask him then. I think we can overlooked again.
We have once again. But if you're going to give Prince Andrew new number plates, personalised number plates, what would you have?
I think I gave a suggestion earlier on before we hit record. I don't think I can give that one again. I'm looking round. Nobody's nodding. Nobody's giving me the green light.
So look, the royal family, we in the book say that they're a tremendous asset for this country, but you can't confuse the institution with particular personalities. And why the public feel very let down is because the royal family is about service. That's why they're there. That's at the heart of what they do. And I think, you look at the king and his late mother, that is absolutely running through what they do every single day for this country. So I think the king has been right to do what he has done. He's tried to do it in a very pragmatic way that doesn't take up Parliament's time. But I think that, the public are rightly feel let down by what's happened. But I think the king has dealt with it well. And I hope that the focus can move off his younger brother and remain on him and what he is doing for this country and the world.
Mm-hmm. Now, if Andrew's going on these essentially state-sponsored trips around the world, acting in these disgusting ways, surely foreign intelligence officers must have huge amounts of dirt and evidence about him.
Yeah, well, one of the things is that they do honey traps, and Andrew was a classic person who walked into all this. So wherever he went, girls were provided. It might be a translator, it might be a secretary, it might be going to a nightclub and just picking up girls behind the scenes. I mean, that's how a lot of the nightclubs, for example, in Kazakhstan operated. I mean, they're basically pick-up joints. So we know, not just from a whole series of testimonies that there's compromise, for example, in Russia. So Tim Riley, who's a Cambridge academic, told me that. We know that there's a policeman called Mark Dugan who was given some of the videos that Epstein used to take of people that he was basically putting out. He had cameras all over his houses. So Andrew was filmed in the Epstein properties. Some of this stuff was given to Mark Dugan, a Palm Beach police officer, by the investigators because they were worried that it would be suppressed in America. And Mark Dugan, for some reason, took that to Russia and is now in the hands of Putin. But we know Libyan Mossad, intelligence services, Mossad, everyone has compromised on Andrew. Now, whether they've tried to exert some pressure on him, We just don't know. I mean, strictly the pictures haven't emerged. I suspect they will at some stage. We've got the material which the Senate Oversight Committee is looking at the moment. They're redacting the names of the victims for privacy issues, but whether they will remove some of this material is not clear. I mean, they've taken out the material relating to Trump. And there may be, I suspect, other Republican donors who've gone. But I think there'll be a lot of new names emerging once the Senate is able to release this material. Of course, at the moment, Trump is holding it off by forbidding to ratify the Democrat who would come in and give them the majority they need.
What did Andrew do to use his position for personal profit, and how was he able to do it so many times?
Well, because he was enabled and protected by the institutions. I mean, diplomats, set up these meetings with people. He was his staff organised these things, and these things could all have been shut down. He couldn't run all this. He wasn't booking the jets that took him places or the helicopters, or just even the other day, the Duchess of Kent's funeral, he had an police escort from Windsor. He's not even a working royal. Someone fixed that. He can't just ring up and have it done. So lots and lots of people abetted him and knew about this. I mean, I even have stories of British diplomats, who actually provided some of the prostitutes.
Wow. Well, speaking of these prostitutes, earlier you mentioned about him being in Thailand. 40 prostitutes he went through in Thailand in 4 days.
Yeah, but he is addicted to porn and to sex. I mean, there's a story that Tina Brown says of him staying at the home of Walter Annenberg, who's a former ambassador in London, and he spent the whole time just looking at porn. I was just got some information yesterday about him taking the top floor of a hotel in Hong Kong on a trip for business, where he just had all these Asian prostitutes brought in. He had so many prostitutes coming in to Buckingham Palace, sometimes 2 a night, and he refused to let the security people even know their names, which of course was a concern for security grounds. And Paul Page, who was a policeman on the gate, has gone public on that. But again, pressure was put on people. If protection officers complained, they were told, well, you've got a choice. Do you want to have this nice cushy job, which is double the pay, or do you want to go back on the beat in Brixton? Yeah. Ambassadors who complained suddenly found their next posting was to Lagos. It was a mixture of patronage and pressure. When, for example, ABC Television tried to run a story on Virginia Giuffre and Andrew years before the story broke, the palace said to them, well, if you do that, you'll never again get access to the Prince and Princess of Wales. Wow. And so ABC, I think to their shame, backed off. The News of the World had the story in 2009, so 2 years before it broke, and held it back. So, it's very welcome. The palace is now beginning to take this seriously and is realizing that this is a case of abuse of privilege, and there were victims here who deserve to have some justice, but it's taken them a long time to reach that position.
It was reported that Andrew's personalised number plate, AY02DOY and AY03DOY, were out of date according to the DVLA. So naturally, we asked you lot for your suggestions on what his new number plates could be.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous. Our comment section has been flowing with ideas. Let me have a look. Nope. Can't say half of these. That's filthy. This one here that are disgusting. Good grief. Okay, this one is just about passable. Tony Beckley says DI space KED. Lovely. Lovely. Film Core says incompetence. Good, nice and clean. John Cosmet says capital P, capital O, capital S.
What does that mean?
POS. Piece of.
Oh, okay. I'm just too pure of thought.
Clearly. And Shane Rosnick says simply humbled. Yeah, nice. I think that fairly conceptualizes Andy at the moment and the public reaction to him.
I think that's it. It shows people hold him in utter contempt. I mean, the royal family only exists because we allow them to exist, really. Yeah. And when they are being viewed in that way, it's not a good sign. You can see why the king decided to finally jettison his brother.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really quite brutal when it happened, but obviously he'd been tolerated for a very long time. But I think the royals, they know how to survive. It is important for them to maintain their, public the admiration of the public, put it that way. And clearly he realised, I think that heckle was a key point, wasn't it? When he got heckled, the king got heckled about his brother. And I think they realised the tide has really turned here.
Is Andrew the most unpopular royal ever?
I think that's really difficult to quantify, because I think if you go back through the history books, we have had members of the royal family who are far, far worse than Andrew, believe it or not, who have done far, far worse things. But the difference was they existed in a time before social media, before before the public actually had access to YouTube and to Twitter and all the different various platforms, and had their own ability to talk about this publicly. So obviously things were suppressed back in the day by the press. There was no means for the public to really find out how bad the royals were behaving, and now that just isn't the case. So I don't think he's been the worst behaved member of the royal family back in time, but he's certainly the one that is the most vilified.
Gosh, if there's worse royals going back in time than him, why do we still have them? Why are they still a thing? Good grief.
Well, what else are we going to put in the place? That is always the problem, isn't it? You know, you end up with a situation like America where you have an all-powerful president. Or, you know, look at France. We've got Emmanuel Macron over there. I'm not sure the French are that thrilled about having him. And I have been to the Elysee Palace, and it's pretty lavish. I mean, I think our Queen, the late Queen, with her little 2-bar fire and her Tupperware, lived a far more frugal life than Emmanuel Macron. Certainly, even the press over there, they get wine and 3-course lunches when they're doing a press conference.
Wine and cheese. I thought you were going to say the press.
No, they get a proper feed. You know.
Well, that's good. We work very hard, the press. Absolutely.
I'm not sure our taxpayers would be that thrilled about buying us a glass of wine at lunchtime. If I'm honest.
So now Andrew's been banished from royal privileges.
Yeah.
How is he going to afford to live? Like, Mummy's not around to protect him. Charlie apparently is going to give him a little bit of an allowance each year, but he's got no job. So how's he going to survive?
He's got his army pension.
Navy. But isn't that peanuts?
20,000 a year.
He can't. With his spending, I mean, I don't think I could survive on 20,000 a year. That's why I have to work. I can't imagine him doing it with it. He's going to need his servants, going to need a driver,
He's
his
going to have
horses.
to cut his cloth, isn't he? That's what happens when your circumstances change.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not forget, he's getting somewhere to live, so he's not got rent to pay.
Okay.
Yeah, he's going to have to, go on the express.co.uk, and there's plenty of handy tips on how to survive in this cost of living crisis, and maybe you should get on there and find some ways to reduce his heating bill and eke out a bit from those leftovers in the fridge. He's going to have to work hard to
survive.
Yeah.